Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, May 12th meeting of the Yountville Zoning and Design and Review Board. I will call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Member Janes?
Say again?
Roll call.
Roll call. Member Janes?
I didn't hear my name. Jason. Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Member Lass?
Here.
Chair Durham?
Here.
Let the record show that Member Cook is excused and Member Scoggins is absent.
So shall we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any, and we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Any discussion or changes?
No.
Do you have a motion to adopt the agenda then?
Moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. No copy of minutes this meeting, so we shall move to number 6. If there's any public comments of any item that's not on the agenda this evening, you have a chance to get up and speak now. Very good. And with no items on the consent calendar, we will move to the public hearings. So we will start with the design review of 5 Talent Lane.
Great.
And thank you.
Thank you, Board. Before you tonight is a project that was initially brought before the Zoning and Design Review Board on February 10th of this year. At that meeting, the proposed project contained 2 specific elements that prevented it from being approved. One of them had to do with the floor area ratio, or FAR, as well as parking was the other one. The applicant has since made modifications to the project and has, in the view of staff, brought the plans into compliance with the town standards, which is why it is now brought to you again this evening for approval. The applicant proposes to raise the existing structure and build a new 2,200 square foot 2-story residence with a 452 square foot garage. Proposed is a 5-bedroom, 6-bath dwelling, each bedroom having 1 bathroom attached to it, with a 6th bathroom being connected to the family room. The residence will be situated 20 feet from the front property, with the front of the residence oriented toward the driveway, and the side of the building facing Talent Lane. It will feature horizontal wood siding, a gable roof, an east-west axis, dormers, divided light windows, and 2 stone chimneys, one on each side of the east and west elevations. Now, as I mentioned, this application has been revised since its original application. The revised design is consistent with the zoning and design standards that exist within the Yountville Municipal Code. Staff wants to acknowledge that the proposed design is a great improvement over the existing structure that stands there right now. In the initial application, staff identified the concerns of FAR and parking, and the applicant has since worked with staff in order to bring the plan into compliance. So first I wanted to just address the floor area ratio. It does conform everything with what our Yountville Municipal Code requires, and part of that is because it now qualifies for 2 exemptions. The first one is the 2nd floor area that is open to below. The original plans had it be 18 feet high, and that made it so it wasn't qualified as an exemption for FAR. They have since lowered the roof down to 16 feet, which is the requirement for it to be exempt from FAR. And so with that, they were able to apply for that exemption. Second is the covered patio that is adjacent to their house. You may recall in the original application, it was all the covered patio was within the existing roof line. It was consistent, which added to the perceived vision of it being a large massing structure. That sense has changed, and the covered patio now, as the elevation shows, has a lower roof line and is now considered an architectural element to the house, reducing the perceived massing of the building. The patio now fits the qualification for the exemption. Staff considers this an improvement in regards to the perceived massing of the house and a resolution to the chief concern of the previous application. They also addressed parking. The garage is located at the rear of the parcel, which is the preferred location, which would minimize its prominence. The existing structure has the garage directly behind the right-of-way, and its relocation at the end of the long driveway is a vast improvement to what stands there right now. The rear of the garage initially contained a pool bath. That bath has been removed and now is a patio. Following the February hearing, the applicant included a turnaround area near the garage in response to the concern that there wouldn't be adequate parking. Now with that extra turnaround area, there's room for the cars to not have to back up all the way through the driveway. They're able to now turn around and exit the long driveway moving forward rather than in reverse. Also considered in this revision, previous drawings showed furniture plans, including multiple beds in each of the bedrooms. The revised drawings now have no furnishings included. There also, at the last meeting, there were concerns that the property would be used as a short-term vacation rental. The applicant is well aware of the town's rules regarding vacation rentals and has stated that there is zero intent to use the home as a vacation rental. The previous drawings also included a door to the family room. The revised drawings show that that door has been removed, and now it's just an open portal, if you will, rather than a physical door separating the rooms. The town has, as you know, implemented drought measures. We aren't getting any rain. And so because of these drought measures, in keeping with the governor's recent declaration, condition of approval has been added to delay the pool construction and filling of the pool until after the drought measures have been lifted by the town council. That will be a condition of approval that you see on all future projects that contain pools. We're waiting until the drought's over before we install new pools. So, with that being said, and with the design review findings as presented, staff believes that the design criteria is satisfied with this revised application. And so it is town's recommendation that the board receive this staff report, direct any questions to us, conduct a public hearing, and then consider the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Commissioner Janes, any question of staff?
Not at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Lass? Thank you. See none, I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and speak, if they would.
Hi, my name is Heather Block, and I don't have too much to add to Nathan's comments. We worked together to try to make sure that the project was in line with all the town's desires.
Great.
Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions of the applicant?
Well, thank you.
No, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So at this time, we'd like to invite any members of the audience who would like to discuss this project.
Yes. Good evening. My name's Jim Romeri. I live at 3 Talent Lane. My concerns, which I brought up at our first meeting here, was I do believe that it's an open window for a bed and breakfast or an inn. These people our new homeowners have good intent to have their friends and family over, but for any reason, if that falls apart, it's a wide open window for an inn, and our neighborhood is not conducive to an inn. My other concern is the Mesa Water Project that everyone approved here years ago, and the town council went through and solved our water issue. I do not want that to be disturbed. And I don't know if it's a good fit. I really don't know if it's a good fit for our little lane. It's a private little lane which is conducive to bringing in an inn. And what would prevent me, when this gets approved, to build an inn next door to them? And here we go. I mean, I'm really a loss for words. It's not a single family dwelling with a family residence, and I really have a hard time with it. I really do. And thank you for your time. Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to speak on this project?
I'm Peter Jacobson at 22 Talent Lane. Lived there for 35 years and have never met the people except I've met the lady, well, the lady presented. So I don't, my main concern has got to do with, once again, the number of bedrooms. It's a single-family dwelling, and it seems like a lot of rooms for a single family, though they may have a large family. Once again, I don't know. I think the other, I'm concerned about parking. Actually, I did the math on Talent Lane. There's 23 people total, all the houses that are currently there that live, that's the only number. And so I guess in one of the things, the suggestion was there was intended room and space for 24 people. That would double Talent Lane pretty quickly in one house. So it just seems large, but I'm not sure how to solve it since they've come into compliance and met the FAR ratios, all those sort of things. I guess they have whatever privileges they, or any of us have. Speaking of any of us, actually, the other 3 houses that live at the sort of end of Talent Lane are all about 6 lots each. So Talent Lane hasn't been built out. But whatever precedent you set, we'll be setting a precedent. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric Bedford. I live at 12 Talent Lane. I just had a question for staff. Did we ever figure out the size of the lot? Because the survey you noted was 9,000 plus. The drawing said 7,800. The Napa assessor says 7,900. So I can better understand the FAR.
It's at the bottom of page 5 of 7
Okay.
for lot area, that it was determined that the lot is, the revised applicant drawing, that it's 9,042.20 and is consistent with the survey.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other thing my notes are based on the February 10th meeting, not the current plans. But I think Peter also pointed out parking. I just looked up average size of a parking space, 9 by 18. I'm sure you talked about I think tonight was a little different with the 5-bedroom, 6-bath, kind of changed it to versus hearing from the February meeting of 24-person occupancy. And that's why I was like, 24 people? That's like 5 or 6 cars, and if a car parking space is 9 by 18, you're talking anywhere between 800 and 970 square feet just to put the cars. So there was the 2 issues that I was looking at was the same that was printed out in the earlier revision. So, I don't know. I think Peter really pointed out something that I think I'm going to be concerned with down the road is if we're starting to do some big houses, there's a lot. He has an acre, he has a little over an acre, I'm an acre, and then our other neighbor, he's 2 lots, and I think he's an acre plus. So, there's a lot of density that can end up at the end of Talent Lane, and I don't know if the end of the road is excited about that. So, anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience like to speak on this project? Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments? Sure, please. Just be sure to come back up to the microphone.
Thank you for your comments, and I can appreciate your concern. Especially since if you read the first, can you hear?
Sorry. Speak into that,
okay,
and
I'll
they'll be able
speak
to
here.
hear you.
Yeah, I won't speak to
No
that.
problem. No. But they'll be able to hear you.
Yeah.
The house is not very large. It complies. It sounds big in that it has rooms. We do have a large family, so with our family, that's not even 1 room per person. But I can very much appreciate your concerns, and I think that's why the city puts the provisions they do in place to make sure that you don't get a home that is too large for the lot. And actually, the house is smaller and in footprint than the house that is currently there. It's smaller. It's also set back 20 feet. The house that's there now is right on the street. So I think that it's much better positioned within the lot, and I don't think ultimately it's going to be this grand property that's you're gonna drive down the street and be like, whoa, that's such a large property. It sounds worse, and I know the first write-up kind of did it injustice in that it described it in a way that it will not be used. We are a single family. We understand the concerns of the neighbors, and we've done what we can to make it in compliance and also to make it truly an improvement over what's there. Our intent is to be there long-term. It is not an inn. I don't think it's zoned as such. I don't think it could ever be that unless things dramatically change in this town. So I just want to alleviate people's concerns that it's an inn. But we are a large family, and we actually enjoy being that. So and we're really happy to be in Yountville. So we hope that you'll take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll close public comment, and we will have discussion here. Commissioner James, would you like to start with your thought?
Before we engage in our discussion of the merits of the application, I think it's important we respond to some of the public comments. And Mr. Murray, Mr. Jacobson, and Mr. Bedford all really touched on a lot of the same points. Potential use, commercial use instead of as a house, the size of the lot. Mr. Murray, in particular, you mentioned an infrastructure improvement, the Mesa Court Water Project, and parking. I am not indifferent to those concerns at all, but none of them are things we can really act upon. Our only guidelines are the zoning and the design ordinance. We can't here tonight address the underlying zoning or modify the rules that stipulate what the FAR ratio is, what setback is, and required parking. It's just beyond our purview. Again, it doesn't mean I don't think those are not necessarily valid concerns. So what I would encourage you to do for the two things that I think are the biggest concerns on Talent Lane are to petition the council to consider a different metric for parking. In Yountville, single-family dwellings are required to provide 2 off-street parking places. By way of a different example, in the city of Napa, the parking calculations are based on the number of bedrooms, with the reasonable assumption that the number of bedrooms correlates to the number of people who might live in a house, and in turn correlates to the number of cars that are available. But that's not our rule, so we can't enforce something differently. Similarly, a couple of you touched on the lot size and how they can be subdivided. We've previously, this board, talked about when we encounter lots, such as this one, that it typically exceed the maximum lot size in Yountville, so the structure gets very large as a function of the floor area ratio. We've bandied about ideas such as limiting the gross size of a house as though the lot size were 8,000 square feet. Again, though, that's something the council has to act on. Whether there was a new zoning district for Talent Lane saying the minimum lot size is a half an acre, or the maximum lot size is, the maximum dwelling size is a different metric. So I would encourage you, for those concerns in your neighborhood where you look at future development, to petition and agitate with the town council to try to change the underlying zoning. But that's not something we can do tonight. We can only sort of go through a checklist of complying with standards and then exercise our judgment when we're with respect to finishes and if there are judgment calls where the ordinance isn't clear. But it's really clear on lot size, setback, and required parking.
I'd like to chime in, because you said exactly what I wanted to say about the parking standards. I think we understand that both in our commercial and our residential districts that we don't have enough parking in our current standards, and there actually is some work at the staff level to look at making some modifications similar to what you're talking about, which is to establish a certain number of parking spaces per bedroom, because that makes more sense. You know, a 2-bedroom house is going to have a different number of cars than a 5-bedroom house. So, you know, it certainly isn't like news to us that we know that that needs to be changed. That's something that is going to be worked on in the near future. And then, you know, a lot of people will say, well, why don't we have a maximum number of bedrooms that we allow in, and, you know, what constitutes a family? And these are all issues that not just Yountville, but everyone deals with, because a family, that the traditional family is not how we can define a family legally in California. It's, associated with people that cohabitate together, and that's pretty much what the rules are. And we don't have a limitation on number of bedrooms. That makes it very difficult. But I think, the applicant certainly has made light year attempt to comply with the issues that kind of are along that line, in that the garage is in the rear of the dwelling, which is making it less obtrusive, and also provides for more area for parking. So I think even if there was one car per bedroom, the parking isn't going to be out on Talent Lane. It's going to be in the driveway. So I think that's a benefit. Even though they were only required to have 2 spaces, which are in the garage, they could actually have that right up against the street and with a driveway that's 18 feet long. But instead, we've got this long 74-foot driveway, so that allows for some stacking. And then I think the major change in terms of the massing of the structure, it looks completely different than the proposal you saw in February. Even though the number of bedrooms is the same, the massing is quite a bit different, and I think will look a lot more in keeping with the neighborhood. So those are my comments. But I appreciate what you said about our standards being too low, because we know that.
Any other comments?
I keenly remember the original hearing, and the application was deeply flawed. But I commend the applicant for taking all the steps to bring it into compliance, and I won't have much trouble with it from here.
Thank you. Commissioner Laz, any comments?
I agree. You're within the FAR with the change of the patio and the moving the garage to the back. I think is a great improvement, and I think you made a good point about the fact that the dwelling is, set back further than it is currently. So at 2,200 square feet or however big it is, set 20 feet back from the property. I think it makes sense, and I don't think it's going to be it's compliant. It makes sense, and I would approve it.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment, too, to piggyback on what Commissioner Jane said. This is not an inn. It's a home. We also sat here several months ago and decided that Airbnbs and short-term rental are not allowed in this town, and everybody fully agreed with that. So I want to be completely clear. We're not approving an inn. We're not approving a commercial space, and we're not reviewing a commercial space, nor are we reviewing an inn. We're reviewing a home. So we're not setting any precedent by allowing a 5-bedroom home to be built on Talent Lane. We are applying all of the information that we need to allow this home to be built. So I want to be absolutely clear on that. And it's up to the town of Yountville to ensure that it continues to operate as a residential property and not a commercial property as well. And that falls into the town and to the town council as well. So as someone who distinctly remembers the first application, I will tell you this is a vast improvement, and I greatly respect the fact that obviously the lines of communication were open and a lot of discussion were had, and we greatly appreciate that. So with that being said, would one of you like to make a motion for this project?
I have a question regarding planning design review condition number 3, and I've just answered it, so no.
Number 3?
I've just answered my own question.
Okay.
Thanks.
So a motion for this project?
Typically falls on me, doesn't it?
You know it does.
Okay. I will move to approve item 15277 with its attached conditions of approval unamended.
In a second?
A second.
Any further discussion on this? Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the project moves forward. Thank you very much. So we will move on to item 15255, design review of 1950 Yountville Crossroad.
Thank you, board members. You have before you this evening a application by architect Ivan Limerick Rick, I'm sorry, I messed up your name, on behalf of the owners, Jerry Glimbaki and Juliet Davis, for construction of a single-family dwelling at 1950 Yount Crossroads. It is currently vacant. The house that was on the property was demolished several years ago. The subject parcel is approximately 11,800 square feet. It is situated on the north side of the road and abuts the Palisi Vineyard property, which is currently within the town limits but is an agricultural preserve. The development of this property will likely serve as a gateway residential structure coming into Yountville from the east for quite a long time. The applicant proposes to construct a 2,950 square foot, two-story residence with a pool and attached 588 square foot garage. In addition, they plan a 600 square foot second unit. The primary residence is proposed to have 2 master bedrooms and 2 regular bedrooms and have 5 baths. The second unit is proposed to be a 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit in the front of the property. The residence is situated 53 feet from the front property line, and the second unit is set back 23 feet from Yount Cross right-of-way. The primary residence is oriented to the west towards the driveway and the side of the building facing Yountville Crossroad. The structures are designed featuring vertical board and batten siding with riverstone accents, a standing seam metal roof, and a combination of cross-gabled roofs and ridge accents with cupola elements on the garage and second unit. In your packet was not the materials board, and I do have it now. It's here, and we can pass it around, Nathan, if you would like. The applicant is proposing to paint the dwelling a white with a gray standing seam metal roof and, as I said before, the stone accents. The development standards for the project have been analyzed, and the dwelling meets the 25% FAR requirements and all of the other standards established by the zoning ordinance. Again, this is another project that was submitted to us at a staff level earlier on, and the applicant over the last 4 months has worked to come into compliance with the town standards to the maximum extent that they can. There's a couple of issues that I think still are of concern. Originally, there was quite a bit more grading. The house was elevated significantly, but now the house has been reduced in elevation, and there is a net increase of 108 cubic yards of material that will be brought in for fill. There's approximately a 4-foot retaining wall on the northeast corner, and then that's been dropped significantly from what was originally proposed. I think given the fact that this will be a cornerstone, if you will, for the town for many years, if you take a look at the elevation, the east elevation, the building is 27 feet tall and has a significant amount of, it's a 2-story with a view and a lot of windows, and that will be, as you're coming into town on Yount Cross Road, it'll be visible for quite a while, from quite a ways away. Staff has some concerns about the color. It's Kelly Moore Whitest White, which is a very, very white color. So I'm asking the design board to kind of take a look at that and see if you think that's appropriate, given the size of the structure and the fact that there won't be anything, if you will, softening that view as you're coming into town from the east. There is one other area where staff has concerns, and we've been discussing them with the applicant up until last week. Currently, the zoning ordinance does not allow a second unit to be in front of the house. It's not allowed. We talked to the applicant about changing the location, swapping, if you will, the location of the garage with the second unit. And the applicant felt that that wouldn't provide them the privacy that they would like to see. And so they have asked us to bring the application as it's been submitted with that shown. But we've also talked to them about potentially eliminating that second unit altogether if that's, if that's something that they could consider, and they said they would. With those two issues, we're asking some input from the board. If either the garage and the second unit are exchanged in location, staff feels comfortable that the design review findings for approval can be met and are included in your staff report. One thing that I just wanted to mention, we had a discussion about the pool on the previous application. The applicant, the Blocks, actually decided that they did not want to put the pool in at this time with the drought. There isn't anything that prohibits the construction of a pool during these drought times, and so I have included a condition of approval that they cannot use town water to fill the pool.
Drought requirement. That's what our
and that's what our resolution says, is that that town water cannot be used to fill a pool, or empty. If somebody empties it, they have to exchange the water. They have to bring the water in from out of the area. So that is included as a condition of approval because the Glenbachys, as I understand it, would like to construct the pool at this time because of where it's located and how it's behind the house. That would make it very difficult to come back in at phase 2 and construct at a later date. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and then we can hear from the applicant.
I have two. Chapter 1711.16 of the ordinance describes second residential units. Can you point out to me where it's prohibited for this ministerial action?
I will look it up. I don't have it right on the tip of my tongue, but if you just will move ahead, and then we can come back to it. Yeah.
Well, the next question is for you to please repeat, and Nathan and you were talking amongst yourselves. I understood you earlier when you described the condition of approval for the prior application to say the rules were already in place to prohibit the filling, the construction and filling of pools. And frankly, I feel it was a bit awkward for us, that understanding. So I want to be perfectly clear where here the applicant might not disagree. What in fact is the rule that is in effect, not just don't waste water, which is a state law to begin with?
With our most recent drought resolution that was passed, the filling of a new pool with town water, with municipal water, is prohibited. However, if someone wants to come in with private water, with a private distributor, they are within their rights to do so.
Okay, thank you for the clear statement, and I would encourage you to make it abundantly clear in the future. I think the presentation with the last application implied otherwise.
Right. We actually, when he said that, I leaned over and said, "Gee, that's not what I have as a condition." I just knew that
he gave me a firm hit with the elbow.
I didn't really hit him, but I do know that the Blocks had agreed that they would not install it at this time. So that was the difference.
For the moment, those are my only questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Laz, any questions? Can you clarify? Because I see in here Yountville Municipal Code 18.16.050, and your clarification is for which code?
I've got to find it.
The Zodo, second units.
In terms of location?
Actually,
Yes. In the zoning ordinance, I'm reading the chapter for second residential
very
units.
good.
We talked about this at our last meeting. Second residential units occupy a privileged position in California. We can only make a ministerial decision tonight about it.
well, I think that you cannot deny a second unit that's legally allowed within the zone district. I think the placement of where that unit can be placed can be regulated by the town, and in fact is.
Okay, and that's what that was the heart of my question.
It's not that we would say, no, you can't construct a second unit, but we can control where it can be constructed.
Well, that's the heart of my question, is I can't find where it's prohibited, and so I'd like to know that, the location.
Actually, it's on the bottom of page 4 on the staff report,
In the ordinance.
in the 18-16050. Yeah, it just says detached second units and accessory buildings shall not be located in a required front yard, street side yard, or corner parcel recorded easement, or closer towards the public right-of-way than the nearest point of the main building to the public right-of-way, regardless of the location of the main building.
That's in the municipal code or the
Municipal
zone?
code.
Yes.
It's in
Design, in
municipal.
the design ordinance.
It's in the design ordinance.
Ah,
Sorry.
18,
There you go.
16.
that's the difference.
All right, thank you. You've answered that question.
Any other questions of staff? Very good. Then I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and speak on this project.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Glumbacki. First of all, I just wanted to thank the Planning Department for all the work that they've done in guiding us on the design. So really appreciate that. I wanted to thank the Commission for the time tonight. Since buying the property, we've tried to continually improve it. So if you turn back to 2009 when we bought the property, there was a very old rundown house on that property. In the back, there were illegal buildings, tires. There was essentially a lot of junk. So we moved very swiftly to try to tear down that old house just for the benefit of aesthetics for the town. And we knew it would take us a while to design a new home. We wanted to be very thoughtful about it and put a project in that would be beautiful and aesthetically very pleasing for the town. The first issue of the guest house, we ask for your consideration to put the guest house in front, and it's mainly for aesthetic reasons. As Marlene mentioned, this is a house that's on the edge of town. It's the first or second house that many people will see when they drive into town. And we feel the aesthetics of having a small guest house in the front with the bigger house in the back is a lot more appealing. It provides a layered look. Our motivation in constructing a guest house is to provide a rental unit for the community, a long-term rental unit. And in that regard, we wanted to provide privacy for the renter. So there's a small yard between the main house and the guest house that's designated for the renter. We intend to put a fountain in that area. And then in the backyard, we would have our privacy. The challenge with the lot is that it's a very narrow lot, and we didn't have a lot of flexibility to locate the guest house in the back. If we did that, then the renters wouldn't have privacy, and neither would we. The second issue with regard to the paint, and it's an area that we've thought long and hard about. We actually modeled the design after the Nickel and Nickel Winery, and that's a white color, and we believe that it's extremely attractive with the type of metal roof that we selected, and there's precedence for it. In fact, across the street, the two houses as you enter town are also white. So we wouldn't be the only white house as you come into town. And we feel that it's important design element, so we ask your consideration on that. And then with regard to the pool, I think Marlene summarized that very well. You know, we're willing to work with the town, be it not using public water or not even filling the pool and providing the cover while we're in a drought condition. So we're willing to do that. But because the lot is so narrow, the access to the back will be very limited. So it would be extremely difficult to construct a pool after the fact. So in closing, you know, we look forward very much to being part of the Yountville community. This will be our retirement home here in Yountville. We love Napa and Yountville very much. We live in the Bay Area. So much so that we actually chose Yountville for our wedding. So we were married here in 2008. We also have a small vineyard just south of Yountville. So we're very much looking forward to living here and getting involved in the growing of that vineyard. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant?
No.
Nope. Thank you very much. Any guests in the audience who'd like to speak on this project? If you want to please come forward.
Hi, my name is Louise Tanasha, and I live at 1980 Yountville Crossroad. Been there for over 20 years, and I was wondering, I called Nathan Steele to ask about a couple of things. One was the height of the retaining wall, how high that was going to be,
Could you please?
because that's right on my property. And will the retaining wall be on their property?
Can you clarify?
Yeah, the retaining wall will be on their property. Obviously, they don't
It'll
have
be on
access
their
to, it's on their property, and,
Including, if I might interject, I'm sure the building staff will ensure that all the subsurface supporting structure for the retaining wall will also remain on the applicant's property.
and I will have to look at the plans. The maximum height of the retaining wall is actually on the northeast corner, so I'm not sure what it is on your side, but I'm going to look at the plans and see if I can find that for you.
Well, when you're coming into Yountville, their lot is here, and
Right.
I'm right next.
Yes, I know, yeah. I'll see what it is on your side. But it, since the site slopes down, it's probably quite a bit shorter than 4.5 feet.
I
The
think
4.5
it's probably
feet.
about maybe 4.5, 5 feet
It is on that corner.
down.
Maybe Ivan, you can help. Thank you. And I'm sorry I butchered your name earlier.
So the record shows this is the architect for the application.
Thank you, Nathan. No, not a passerby.
Kind of guy comes in, I have an answer.
With plans. With plans. Thank you. Luis, did you have further questions while he was hanging those plans?
Pardon me?
Did you have other questions while he was hanging the plans besides the retaining wall?
Well, I was wondering about the height of that building next to my property there. It said 27 feet. Well, if they are 8-foot ceiling, from floor to ceiling, and then that's 16 feet, and I know there's, between the two stories, there's probably something there. And then, but there's about 12 feet higher than the 16. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you?
So I was wondering, are they going to have a 12-foot roof or ceiling? What, I don't understand why
appears-
it's so high.
And I'll have you clarify, but it appears the building height is 27,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
So if the bottom is 8 feet and the top one is 8 feet, then there's 12 feet left for the roof area. What?
The maximum on the building is 27, correct?
Right. The maximum to the tip of the roof. In other words, the center of the roof is 27 feet.
Oh, it's the roof.
The roof line. It's not to the eaves. No, it's to the top of the roof.
Okay, and I was kind of concerned, like the other gentleman, with 5 bathrooms. I sure wouldn't want to see a bed and breakfast or some kind of an inn there in the residential area.
Understood.
And, let's see, I guess that was about it. And it is going to be a single-family dwelling?
Well,
One family?
we call it a single-family dwelling, but that's a bit of a misnomer because as presented, it's a single-family dwelling with a second unit or an apartment. There is a separate, smaller dwelling structure.
And where would that be?
As proposed, it's close to Yountville Crossroad.
No, I mean, the second
Yes,
dwelling.
yes, it's closer to Yountville Crossroad, and the main dwelling is,
It's not in back then?
no.
No.
The primary dwelling is in back. As
And there's going to
proposed
be
in
a
any event.
cupola on the garage or something? A decoration?
Would it be helpful, can you put up the elevations,
Yeah.
please, on the screen
Yeah, we'll
for
put them on the screen.
Mrs. Tanasha?
Yeah, I know that, I did meet with your daughter. She came in yesterday, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about the orientation of the property. The pool is actually on the other side of the, away from your house. I think they've
Thank you,
done a good
Nathan.
job to try to,
Tires where I think.
to try to keep the, the privacy for you and for them, both.
So if you, up on the screen is a,
Do we want to start with the other east elevation showing the second unit?
The second unit
So let me just
is on the
point out
front,
that
near the,
Young Crossroad is this way, so the second unit would be in the front, as proposed, and then the dwelling goes all the way back, and that's the property line is pretty much at the back, at the end of that line. So that's how it's oriented right now.
I meant,
oh, and there's going to be a gravel driveway to their garage?
correct? Correct.
Okay, well, I thank you for listening to me.
We appreciate,
any other questions,
Yeah.
ma'am?
Huh?
Do you have any other questions, ma'am?
Well, I can't think of any. I had to write down everything.
good.
But
Thank you very much.
I guess that's it.
And I think
Thank
maybe
you.
perhaps the architect can get up and just, I'm sorry, just as you sat down, you want to clarify the height of the retaining wall on her side of the property?
If you can put the site plan.
Yeah.
You can pull up.
It's-
That one, yeah.
The civil plan, there's a civil plan.
That is C2. You might not have, is it not in there? Yeah, we don't have it on there.
Essentially, the wall on the northeast corner is 4 foot high, very close to what the existing concrete block wall is. The site slopes from the street toward the east northeast direction. We're filling in the back portion slightly so that we can be more or less even with the road. So we are building a retaining wall that starts approximately 2 foot high at the street level and climbs to about 4 feet toward the back of the property. Along the west side of the property, there's going to be another retaining wall because there's a substantial change in grade between the west property and our property. So there's approximately 4 foot high wall along that portion of the west parcel.
That's the wall Mrs. Tanash is most interested in to the west. Is that 4 foot height?
On
approximately, you say?
the northwest side, yes.
Is it uniform along the west side of the property?
Essentially, yes. We're going to be matching the adjacent grade. There's a big drop between the west property, and it's just dirt, essentially a dirt slope. And we're just basically putting a retaining wall along the property line and more or less holding the soil back from the adjacent property.
Approximately 4 feet high, the entire western property line.
It is.
Is that a simple
Yes,
statement
yes,
that's
yes,
that's accurate?
Yes, yes. And then we have a landscape strip along that wall.
On their property,
It's all
on
on our-
your
it's all
side,
on
it'll
the
be
left.
4 feet high.
4 feet.
Correct. Excellent. Thank you very much for your
thank you.
explanation.
One other question.
Where
would they get the private water instead of the...
Mrs. Tanashin, we must beg you to
I-
come to the microphone.
we hate
can
to
hear
do
you
it.
well, but we have to record you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's all right. It's all right. Any other comments from any of the public on this project?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the commissioners and the public. My comments go to the question of the construction of a swimming pool.
I'm sorry, can you please state your name?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have done that at the beginning. Sam Fromowitz. I'm a resident of Yountville of 15 years duration, and we live in a property to the west of, to the northwest of the proposed construction.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. I would like to address my comments to the proposal to construct a swimming pool. And although we are talking about a new unit with new owners, it is our experience is based in part, I will admit, on the past. And with your indulgence, I simply want to point out that with the existence of a swimming pool in the past, in the previous unit, there were continuing problems of noise and right through late into the night, early in the morning, with police involvement. I fully appreciated the comments of the new owners as to the direction they wish to take this property, and but I would simply note that the existence of a pool is conducive to that type of noise and interference, and I would hope that that is one consideration that they bear in mind as well. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from anybody in the audience on this specific project? Would the applicant like to step up and make any further comments?
I'd just like to address some of the comments from the neighbors. First of all, just to point out on the retaining wall, that retaining wall will not protrude above grade, so it will not be visible at all from the house next door, from your house. It's not going to be visible, nor would it be visible in your yard. It's going to be below the grade. And then to the second question regarding police and the pool, we understand when we purchased that property that there were police problems associated with a lot of issues, some of them drugs and so forth in that property. And we're peaceful people. We don't disturb our neighbors, and I can guarantee you that there won't be noise and wild parties and that type of thing. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing no more comments, we will close the public discussion and move towards our discussion on the commission. Commissioner Janes, should I start with you?
Sure. I find it objectionable to impose a condition of approval prohibiting pool approval until there's enabling legislation. Secondly, while I think it's valid, Interim Director Demarest made the point that this is a very prominent location as far as ingress into town. I don't know that it's unfair to impose that burden on the applicant, again, in the absence of any enabling legislation. We just approved a project where I pointed out, I think, that we were finding it complied with all the ordinance. I think it's just a bridge too far to require a project to comply with non-existent ordinances. With that said, my biggest struggle is it's flatly prohibited to have a detached second residential unit in the front yard. And I can't see a way past that. The findings to grant that variance to allow that are really onerous to meet. So I will have a very difficult time approving the project when it so clearly is contradictory, as you've pointed out, to the design ordinance. What I further wrestle with, if the applicant were here to agree, I will delete the second unit altogether. If we can look at the south elevation that just shows the dwelling only, there are two south elevations in the package. It's difficult. Oh, you were just there.
That's the one.
It's difficult for me to say that that's a front elevation of a dwelling. I don't believe we would ever approve that as the front elevation of a structure, absence of the typical large covered porch and the articulation. So I will struggle mightily with approving this application, even if we by fiat deleted the second unit.
I just wanted to clarify, we are not proposing a condition of approval that they not construct the pool. It's just that they cannot use town water. And that's pursuant to the drought ordinance that the council's adopted.
And that's a town regulation regardless, in fact.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Which is already in place.
correct.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Last? I go last. I'm the chair.
This house looks complete with that front guest house being there. And I know you're saying if you take away that front house or the front guest house, it changes the whole dynamic of the home. So in terms of just swapping out the garage to that, I don't know if that's the solution. The exterior white, I actually don't have a problem with, only because I forgot how many feet. The stone, I think, breaks it up enough. So I actually don't take issue with that. I think that's it.
Thank you. As far as the paint's concerned, I sat here over a year ago and said that I thought the town should determine colors to be used, but we have yet to do that. So until that happens, I think they are within their rights to use this color. I would love to say no to the pool and the 2 fountains on the property, but once again, as long as they're compliant within what we have determined as a town to be able to do that, then I don't want to make a condition that the pool may not be constructed. Lastly, since I've been on here, we have not allowed an exemption for second dwellings in the front, and as far as I know, in my last 13 years that I've lived in this community, we have not done that either, from our discussion today, Nathan. So I do not want to set the precedent of opening up the opportunity for others to move forward. One of the things that I think is so important moving forward in Yountville is consistency. And so with that being said, would someone like to make a motion for this?
Can I suggest something also?
Yes, please.
I have to appreciate what Commissioner James said about the south elevation, and Commissioner Laz about also that when you take the guest house away, it really, I hadn't really realized how much it really does. It's very flat. So, there may be some articulation that you'd like to suggest to the applicant if they decide to move ahead without that guest house included. Perhaps there could be a trellis effect or some sort of a patio or something that would break that pretty tall and long flat surface. So that would just be a suggestion.
I think the changes, Marlene, that you are conceptually discussing would be substantial enough that it would be inappropriate for us to try to design them from these seats, and that's something the applicant and his design professionals should address.
Okay.
That's my view. I welcome the opportunity to make a suggestion, but I think it's too far to go for us, for me.
Or the suggestion of moving it, correct? Is that what you're...
Well, we initially talked about, putting the garage there. I think that, again, would be a lower roof line and probably would break that up, and very similarly to what is proposed with the second unit if that was moved. But again, not really seeing how the applicant might want to accommodate that. It would make it difficult to say, yeah, that would be fine. But that was our proposal, was that they look at changing those 2 locations. So.
And the applicant has those opportunities, and it's stated directly in our code that the second dwelling is not in the front, correct?
Correct.
So that was understood coming in.
Yes.
Very good. Would someone like to make a motion on this project?
No.
Good for you. Then I will make a motion.
Is one? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Was there one other concern? No. So I would like to make a motion that for 15255 design review of 1950 Yountville Crossroad, that the pool condition be removed and that the applicant needs to move forward with a,
The pool condition is really just says that they
Okay.
cannot fill it with town water. So it's,
no, in this, though, in here, it says it may not be constructed.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, so that's
Jeff,
why I want to be
because
clear.
Marlene told
Okay.
us
There
exactly.
is a
what-
conflict between
sorry.
what's written in the staff report and what's in one of the conditions.
I was on
of
vacation
approval.
and-
That
That's
can
all
be
right. And some
settled
things got
together.
changed.
That's why I want to be clear. So I want to be clear that number five be removed, and then that the applicant be able to move forward with removing the second unit from the front, however they see fit.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like you to clarify your motion. Does voting for that
Thank you.
motion, meaning the applicant has a design review approval for removing the second dwelling without needing to return for a new elevation or any other new design?
With the main house, you mean?
I'm having trouble understanding what I would be voting for.
the other option would be, to continue this to your next meeting, and we could work with the applicant on that if that's something that you want to see.
Is the question to us to approve the application is in fact a motion required at all?
I guess it would be important, you need to have a motion to continue, but it also might be important for you to give the applicant some guidance on this motion that you've already made, whether or not that would pass. And if it wouldn't pass, then we could maybe talk to the applicant about if they would desire a continuance instead.
And so to clarify,
Instead of a denial.
So to clarify once again, they can redesign the front, or they can move the second residence.
You could approve the application with just the removal of the second residence. And I think the concern is that south elevation something that you would want to approve in design review, or would you rather see some changes to that if the unit's removed? So I think that's really, you should discuss that and
So
decide
given
what
your
you want.
discussion, if that second unit is removed, you want to see a redesign on the south elevation?
Correct.
Yeah.
And you said yes also?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it might be just a second.
Yeah,
Before
that's-
we make a motion, then you might want to withdraw your motion and just ask the applicant if they'd like to continue this until the June meeting, and, and then work on providing some new elevations on the south elevation that might be more to your
Well,
liking.
the applicant has more than one option.
That's my point.
It could remove the second unit, alter an elevation. We haven't said one way or the
Right.
other affirmatively. I think we've just expressed concerns. The applicant
Right.
could reconfigure the property altogether.
True.
I don't recall if in this zoning district, street-facing garages are discouraged in the front yard, but I think they are, so I think we want to be careful again of trying to design from sitting here and
That's
saying,
fine.
just
Right.
put the garage in the front. So maybe your idea, Marlene, was a good one, that we
Just
have a
continue.
continuance
Just
and
continue.
encourage the applicant to
And they are nodding in affirmative. So we will work with the applicant and either have this on your next meeting or whenever it is ready for you to see then.
Yeah.
So 15255 for 1950 Cross, Yountville Cross will be continued to the next ZDRB meeting for further review.
All the chairs settle around before we start.
That's a big deck. Right.
With that, we will move to item 15257, design review of Whistle Stop Center, 6505 Washington Street, with the, staff report.
Thank you, board members. This project before you this evening is for design review only of a modification and change to the Whistle Stop Center. The applicant is JCB Collection. They are proposing a tasting salon for the spot that was originally occupied by Cornerstone and Marta's VT Fashions. As you are aware, the Cornerstone sellers recently moved to the rear building that was occupied by the health club, and as part of that, transferred their use permit from the front to the back, leaving the building where Marta's and Whistle Stop vacant. The total square footage of the three-building complex is 9,470 square feet, and the space that we're speaking about this evening is 2,830 feet, roughly one-third of the site. The only thing that the applicant is proposing this evening that is before the board is construction of a patio along the Washington Street frontage of the building. The proposal is to remove a portion of the patio deck of from the current porch area and to construct a 460 square foot patio deck, so roughly an increase of 300 square feet. The applicant is also proposing to change out the landscaping in accordance with town requirements to drought-tolerant landscaping, both along the site, and then as a condition of approval, staff has added a condition that the existing sod that is along both the access driveway to the south as well as the Washington Street frontage be changed also to drought-tolerant landscaping. There are several other items that will be coming before the town council. The actual construction of the tasting salon will require a use permit, and that will be going before the council. Originally in the packet, you might see some signage that was proposed. In the interest of speed, the applicant has dropped that portion of their application from consideration this evening and would come back at a later date for altering the master sign program, and until such time would be following the existing sign program for the Whistle Stop Center in the interim. I think that if you take a look at the design, and the applicant will also walk you through it, the new patio conforms to the existing design of the center and will be an attractive addition to the site. There are some issues with some of the ADA door swings that will have to be addressed. The applicant understands that. As I said, the drought-tolerant plants will also include a drip irrigation system. ADA accessibility to the second floor office is not required. The space is used exclusively for staff and is not open to the public. The addition of the 300 square feet of patio area does decrease slightly the open space on the site by 0.7%. The current open space is 21%, so it drops it to slightly above 20%, which is the requirement. With regard to parking, the 300 square foot addition of a deck adds one additional parking to the demand. Therefore, but the lot is currently has 3 spots more than is required, and therefore, with that one addition, it still conforms with our parking regulations. Just so that you're aware, we're continuing to work with the applicant on the parking. As I said earlier, I think town staff is aware that both in our commercial areas and in our residential areas, we're trying to look at new ways to provide more parking because we know our standards are somewhat low. And so between now and the time of the council meeting, when the use permit is considered, we'll be discussing maybe some changes to the parking to accommodate more employee parking through stacking. The only other potential increase in parking demands results from special events. The applicant is proposing 6 special events per year. They are all-day pickup parties during regular business hours with extended hours to 10 p.m. As such, the town requires currently notice for those special events and would require a parking plan to accommodate those additional cars. And the applicant has discussed with us the idea of a valet parking situation for those parties. So that you are aware, and I believe there's copies on the back, there are proposed conditions, not conditions of approval, there are proposed design findings which were not included in the staff report, but I left them up on the dais. that would allow you to move forward with the findings, proper findings. So I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Commissioner James? Commissioner Lass? We'll have the applicant come forward, speak.
Thank you very much. My name is Tom Blackwood. I am the Director of Retail Operations for Boisset Collection. We are here this evening to, as mentioned, to get approval on our new tasting salon location at the Whistle Stop. A little bit about us, the Boisset Collection. We were founded in 1961. We are a family-owned wine business with over 20 wineries worldwide. We are about inspiring passion in wine, emotion, style, and education. Some of our main wineries here in wine country include Raymond Vineyards in Napa, Buena Vista Winery in Sonoma, and Deloach Vineyards in Russian River. Our vision for Yountville is a true destination that unites wine, tasting, retail, culinary discoveries, and a destination for the enjoyment of the JCB collection of rare and allocated Napa Valley wines. We also plan to open an epicerie, Epicure Shop, a gourmet store, as part of our tasting salon, and also sell jewelry, perfume, and candles. Baccarat glassware and decanters are also very much who we are. And some of our brand and retail partners include Gaggenau, Baccarat, Christophe, Bernardo, and then again the JCB jewelry collection and candles. The picture you see up right now is our JCB lounge in St. Helena and gives you a good picture of our look and feel. We also hope to be a part of the community. We have donated or been a part of raising millions of dollars for Napa County through the auction, through hospice, through Red and White in Yountville, and many other causes, including Boys and Girls Club. The JCB Tasting Salon will focus on our Napa Valley wines and also will cater to locals and visitors. Epicure by JCB, we hope, will also cater to locals and visitors, but really will focus on gourmet food from local sources throughout the world. Our real goal is for locals to not to have to drive to St. Helena or Napa to buy high-end foods. So what I'd next like to discuss again is really what's the focus of tonight's meeting is about our landscape plan. We have with us tonight Joe Papendick, who is our landscape director at Raymond Vineyards, and for Boisset, he oversees all of our landscapes at all of our wineries. He has created a landscape design drought-resistant plan for our location. Should be in your drawing set. The type of plants we will include will all be drought resistant and meet current guidelines. In addition, Joe has put together, which I just dropped off today, a landscape design for JCB Yountville, a water budget. And the water budget essentially uses the Napa County standards, working with UC Davis, and comes up with the square footage and the amount of gallonage expected through normal rainfall, and then the expected estimated total water use through the drip irrigation and plant needs. This calculation has showed that we will use almost 10,000 gallons less than is needed, or that actually occurs through rainfall. Now, Joe can answer any questions that you may have with that. The other piece is the deck, which we feel is an important addition to the location. We feel the deck for the frontage will create a more appealing entry and also a place for guests to enjoy their tasting flight. Here's a picture of the current conditions and then proposed conditions. The deck, we feel, will enhance the appeal of Yountville and the whistle stop buildings, and will add to the location. In the end, our goal is to, as I stated, to be a part of the community, but also to enhance the community and be a true part. Any questions?
Any questions? No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have another member coming up to speak?
If you would like, we don't have anybody else to speak, but if you
No, no.
have any questions on the landscape or the deck, our architect's here and our landscape designer.
I don't
Okay.
think so, unless, no. Thank you very much. Thank you. Would anybody else from the public like to come up and speak on this project? Very good. See none, then we will close this to public comment and move to our discussion. Commissioner Janes, any thoughts, concerns, or comments?
No. I promise.
Commissioner Laz, any thoughts or
Actually, I
comments?
did have one question about the usage of the deck. He said wine flights for outdoors. Is it for wine flights only, or is it for food and wine for the retail gourmet shop as well?
It's just for the wine flights.
Just for wine? So
Yeah.
it's a wine, okay.
And I forgot to ask staff, I apologize. There's no concern about losing that walkway that's on, even though it's on the private property that's used for access? That goes north to south?
Yeah,
That's
I mean, there's
parallel,
sti- there's
that's
still a
parallel
pub-
to
yeah.
the sidewalk?
There's already a public sidewalk. Typically, in looking at that, the only people that really are walking on that are ones going up to the building, and since there's still access into the building onto the deck from the sidewalk, we don't think there'd be any impact.
Okay, thank you. Should I ask you to make a motion?
I will.
Commissioner James, would you like to?
I move that for item number 15257, we make the required design review findings 1 through 5 as delineated on the memo presented to us titled Design Review Findings for the JCP Collection ZDRB meeting 5/12/15. We approve the project with the presented conditions of approval.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the project passes unanimously. Thank you very much. You got the landlord there. All right, with that, we will move on to item number 9, presentation and discussion. Anything? Then item number 10, staff and board reports.
Actually have just an announcement. We have...
Jane, don't go.
We have two commissioners that will be up for reappointment or reapplication on July 16th of this year. I've been talking to the town clerk, the two Jasons. I've been talking to the town clerk about the timelines for when she will be advertising for those in the process. And I just wanted to make sure that the two Jasons are aware that she will likely be posting a notice of vacancy around the middle of June, soliciting applications. And there will be an online process this time. It's not a paper process anymore. So that module is not quite set up, but it will be set up by June 16th, and so we would urge you to apply again.
Thank you.
I encourage Michelle to If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. I encourage Michelle to post it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree completely.
And that's it.
I tell them you're going to consider an in, and everybody has to show up. That's a good thing. Any other discussion?
I want to pick up on something you talked about, Jeff. The applicant really understood, hey, this is flatly prohibited, and they elected to come in anyway for 1950 Yountville Crossroad. You asked that question. I'm really glad you did, that they knew that, and I'm just really taken aback, honestly. So I don't know if this is a report or just a comment. That I was taken aback that it was still pursued with such a flat contradiction.
That's why I called town yesterday. I said, maybe I'm missing something here. Why would they come forward if it's clearly stated there? I said, we've never done it. Did it happen before? He said if it would have been in the report. So exactly. That's why I didn't understand. So, all right.
We would have had to make numerous variance findings, too, and that was something, would we not have? And
I'm not even sure, what kind of findings would you make? You've got something that's prohibited. I mean, you'd have to say that there was something absolutely unique about the site that...
Right, and so that's what I was kind of... The follow-up question is that, there's, I think it's 8 or 12 findings that have to be made, and I think we would have had to make those tonight, right?
Yeah, it would have been a process, yeah.
And the applicant stood there and said it was purely aesthetic, which doesn't...
I'm glad you raised what that would look like without, and that's something that, as an engineer, I'm not as sensitive as you three are to those sorts of things, so I appreciate that. So we'll just work with them, and you'll see it next month, probably.
Thank you. So with that, we will adjourn to our meeting in June. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.